Senator Gretchen Hoffman. Senator Hoffman, welcome to the program.
Rob, good to be here.
So give us your reaction. It's over now. You had the special session. You worked late into the night. Everything's to the governor now. The government's going to be operational again. But you were a freshman Republican, not really unlike the freshman Republicans we sent to the House nationally in 2010. You were a House Republican who went in, looking to really shake things up. And heck, I stood next to you at tea parties where you talked about doing this very thing, shaking things up in Minnesota. Do you feel like you accomplished that with this?
Well, Rob, if you talk to anybody in my caucus, they would say that Gretchen's not part of the status quo. This experience for me has been like taking a drink of water out of a fire hose. That you get down here and you've got these great ideas, and you look around the room and you find out there's 67 other senators that you have to convince that your idea is the best one. And so that's been an experience upon itself. And then when we started kind of diving into Minnesota state government, and especially, you come into this and you're dealing with the most liberal governor that the state has probably ever had, and you're looking at what needs to be accomplished here in the state to get this state out of the funk it's in. And that was a challenge. And so you go into shutdown, which was unnecessary, but, that's water under the bridge right now. But what it did show me is how intertwined our government is in our private sector, and I took notes.
Explain that a little bit. When you say government intertwined in the private sector, what do you mean?
Well, if we just even go, I suppose the biggest news article was when Miller and Coors couldn't stock our shelves here in Minnesota. And, you know what they say, don't take a beer away from a Minnesotan in 95-degree heat. But, on a serious note, they couldn't go in and stock their shelves. When did that become a function of government to say what private business can and can't do? One of our businesses over on Lake Superior, I think it was Georgia Pacific, I think that was the name, they had to shut down because the inspector wouldn't come in to inspect when they were pumping water out of Lake Superior to cool their machinery. So, Canterbury Downs had to close. 1,000 people were laid off during this shutdown in our private sector. Government has intertwined itself in Minnesota so much into our private sector that our private sector was starting to come to a halt. And so when we went into special session and we started looking at these bills, I was one of those that said, because of the, we sort of used some one-time money, we used some one-time money, and I said, if you're going to use this one-time money, you better be doing some fantastic reforms. And I didn't come in with a lot of hope. Governor Dayton kind of wants things to grow. He wants to grow government. And then the bills became available to us, and we started to read the bills, and there are some fabulous reforms. We took our Health and Human Service budget that was supposed to grow at about a 30%. It was supposed to grow by 30% in the next biennium. We got that down to a little under 5% in the next biennium, just by the reforms we got in. You know what? For $1.5 billion of extra one-time money, we bought $10 billion of savings over the next 10 years. And so I started looking at all this, and I took some hard votes. We spent more than I wanted to spend. But, when you look at reshaping the way Minnesota does business, I think we did a lot of good here this year. In 5 months, we weren't going to cure what 38 years of Democrat control of the legislature had done, but boy, we got to start.
I was just going to ask you that because you did come off with more spending than you wanted. And, just looking at this broadly, and I know, we run a danger here of letting the perfect be the enemy of the good. And recognizing the fact that there are two branches of government involved in this, and that one branch right now has a very different ideology than the people controlling the legislative branch. But looking at this, are you a little worried? Because you borrowed against future tobacco funds, you deferred some school spending. That sounds a little bit like putting some of the deficit on the credit card.
I know that that's what people are saying to us. The school shift ends up, and I don't have the chart in front of me, shift ends up not hurting the schools at all. And with the reforms that we got with that school shift, we were able to provide the schools who maybe don't have a reserve built up, we were able to provide the schools for some extra funding per student. And that'll help them, and that's built in so that they can go forward and they can do what they need to do. And what we did with the reforms in the schools is we got rid of some of the maintenance of effort, which means the state was telling the schools, no matter what your budget is, no matter what we pay you, you have to perform this. We got rid of that. In Minnesota, there is a provision in law, there used to be a provision in law, that if the school board didn't agree with the teacher contract renewal by January 15th, the state would fine the school. And then, so they send money to the school, and the school would have to send money back to the state. We got that repealed. And so when you look at some of the reforms we bought with that one-time money, the money will be shifted back. And I've got the chart. This year the school got 97% of it. And what shifting means is we just don't pay them now. We push the payment off. I'm not crazy about it. I'm going to be honest with you. That was the biggest sticking point for me. But when I started reading the K-12 bill, we shifted money from a program that wasn't working, that we were spending millions of dollars on, into a literacy program. It was a hard vote to take. I will be honest. You can, like I said, ask any of my colleagues what a hard day I had yesterday. But when I started really reading the reforms and looking at the budget forecasts going forward and how we affected how we will forecast next year and the year after, we won't come in with the way government does things, and we're getting into the weeds here, but we won't come in here with them telling us, oh, guess what? We expect that you're going to have to spend, $45 billion this year. We're not going to have that next time.
But one position, and I think this is kind of getting to my point, because you said, you defer some of these school costs, meaning you are going to have to pay them later, and the bond you're taking out against, future tobacco tax collections, that's something that's going to have to be paid off with interest too. So, how does this leave you going into the next session when you've got to start writing, the next year's budget?
Well, the good thing about the one-time money is it doesn't actually get into the general fund. And honestly, when I wasn't in the middle of all this, it was like, that's too much information for me. But now that I'm in the middle of it, it doesn't go into the general fund, so it doesn't end up in the forecast. And so what actually this will do for us, it will put downward pressure on what we're able to do next time. But with our reforms, and I wish I could go into each and every one of them and each and every bill. There was some stuff we never expected to get from the most left-wing governor we have. And so for that, I have to actually give Governor Dayton kudos, that he was actually able to say, you know what, you're right, this is a good reform. So when we look at our reforms, that will take some of that future spending off the table. And so that will help us to pay back these things faster. And there's some, we got another year to come back. And anything we can do to mitigate any of that, we're going to do. Like I said, did I like that we were spending extra money? No. But we have to work within the confines of what we were working. And to keep the government in shutdown over $1.5 billion, I don't like it. But we have to deal with the reality that Governor Dayton is Governor Dayton.
Yeah. Well, I think maybe the headline to come out of it is not great, but good, and hopefully to get better as time goes on. Senator, thank you so much for your time.
Thank you, Rob.
All right, that's Senator Gretchen Hoffman. House Majority Leader Kurt Zellers from Minnesota on next. We'll cover more of the post-mortem of the Minnesota government shutdown and what all you can expect out of it. I'm Rob Port, sitting in for Scott Hennon, 855-200-1776. Don't go away.
In a moment, I'll give you a telephone number that can help you achieve 80 miles per gallon. Well, I can't wait. Here's the number, 701-235-1937. Now, here's the details. Qualsports has scooters. We're talking